Tape it.
Into tropical Florida. That's the guidebook the Debary Merchants Line put out in the 1880s. It was for folks who rode our steamboats on the St. Johns River. One of many guidebooks written at the time about a new frontier. Well, not the wild, wild west, mind you, but a place that captured the imagination of Americans just the same. A place I'm quite familiar with, as I grew up on the St. Johns, and I've worked on the river all my life. My name is Charles Brock, Captain Brock at your service. Handsome devil, don't you think? I've piloted most steamers in the Debary Merchants Line at one time or another. But seeing as you're here as guests of the Debarys, heading to Debary Hall, only the finest boats of the fleet will do. When Mr. Debary brought these two steamers to the river, the Frederick Debary and her sister, the city of Jacksonville, he raised the standards for comfort and service on the St. Johns. In the time when my father, Jacob, ran his boats on the river, taking guests to his hotel, Brock House, the trip upriver was, well, let's say, an adventure for the hardier traveler. The boats of his day were small, cramped, and hot. The beds, as the Debary line likes to say, were the size of a poorhouse coffin. Never knew who you'd be on board with. Sometimes took 18 hours to complete the run. I imagine you're glad it's 1886 and the city of Jacksonville is available. But I've gotten way ahead of myself. You don't have any idea where Debary Hall is, now do you? Let alone what there is to see on the way. So let's get our bearings. Back to the guidebook. I know there's a map in here somewhere. Never liked the fact that they bound this map in the book. There, that's better. Now here's the port in Jacksonville where the Debary Merchants Line dock is located and the beginning of your journey. I'm telling you, Jacksonville is growing fast. Threefold since the Civil War. Hotels springing up everywhere. And look at these docks, busy night and day. River steamers transferring their cargo to ocean-going vessels, and busy with passenger traffic, especially during the winter months. Hunters, fishermen, sightseers, speculators, invalids, you name it. Florida is a vacation paradise for these people. Now, as for you, you're heading up the St. Johns River to Lake Monroe, into the line for the bigger steamers. On the north shore is the town of Enterprise. Outskirts of town is where Debary Hall is located. It's an overnight trip, near 200 miles, with about 3 dozen landings. This time around, we'll just hit our main stops. Better get comfortable, because now we're ready to leave Jacksonville behind. The first place we come to is Mandarin, where Mrs. Harriet Beecher Stowe lived. You know, she wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. Where have you been? Causing quite a ruckus with that book of hers about ending slavery and all. After the war, she came to Florida. Her house was right on the river. Boat passengers could often see her sitting on the porch. She wrote another book called How Metal Leaves, about her life and travels here. I don't always care for her conclusions. She calls being in Florida a tumble-down, wild, picnicky kind of life. But she did write about my favorite river.
The St. Johns is the grand water highway through some of the most beautiful portions of Florida, and tourists safely seated at ease on the decks of steamers can penetrate into the mysteries and wonders of unbroken tropical forests. During the season, boats continually run from Jacksonville to Enterprise and back again.
I reckon, being famous and all, Mrs. Stowe brought many northern travelers down here with her words. She has a special way of looking at the river. Next landing is Green Cove Springs. Takes its name from the famous sulfur springs right near the dock. Many folks swear that a spring bath and a good night's sleep under Florida's balmy winter moon is all you need to cure what ails you. There must be near 2 dozen large springs feeding this river, another thing that makes it special. You'll likely see 1 or 2 during your stay at Debary Hall. Blue Spring, largest on the St. John's, is near there. Mr. Debary himself owns Green Sulphur Spring right near Lake Monroe, and he even made another spring not far from his home into a swimming pool. Palatka is another river town popular with the tourists and a place jumping with business. The sawmills here turn out the second largest amount of cypress lumber in the world. Ocean-going vessels come upriver this far. If you're ever in town, make sure to dine at the St. John's Hotel, famous for their waffles, roasted wild turkey, and sweetbreads. Along this stretch is the landing at Wilaka. We've got a lot of Indian names in these parts. This one means River of Lakes in their language, their word for the St. John's. I like that name, because the river can open up to be 6 miles wide in spots. Oh, I forgot to mention Tecoy. Not much there, but it's worth stopping for Mr. McLaughlin's tourist train. That'll take you 15 miles direct to the ancient city of St. Augustine. You may be thinking to yourself, why bother? I'll just take an ocean steamer. But not many captains are interested in navigating these treacherous Florida inlets. Speaking of treacherous, that reminds me of the Lucia Bar here at the head of Lake George, where silt from the upper river piles up. In all my days on the river, this sandbar has given me more fits than fleas on a cracker's hound dog. It's grounded steamers for years. Even President Grant spoke when he came to see the St. John's a few years back. Now that helped get some action. The powers that be finally built the jetty and lighthouse that had been promised for years. But even with these improvements, the Lucia Bar still is tricky to navigate. I remember one time crossing Lake George right before sunrise. We'd been delayed by a fierce thunder shower. Not good to get caught in the middle of that lake in a storm. The wind will whip up whitecaps and will push you so far into the shallows you'll never get out. Jesse Gordon, a colored man and one of the best pilots on the river, was at the wheel. Fact is, most St. John's pilots were blind. Nearing the lighthouse at the Lucia Bar, Jesse calls me through the speaking tube to come to the pilot house quick.
Captain Brown, see you now, sir.
I'll be right there, Jesse. Mercy, what a trip. Already behind schedule.
Thought you'd want to know. We're coming up on the jetty, but things just don't seem right.
Looks fine to me. What are you seeing?
You know this bar, sir. It won't ever stand still. I got a feeling Sam's drifted into the channel. It would sure give me peace of mind if we set out the leadsman to take soundings.
Nah, time is a wasting. The new jetty's been holding the channel stable for months now. Haven't had a problem passing through since it was finished. Hold your course.
All right, sir.
What in tarnation? We run aground. Jesse, step aside. Engineer, stop both wheels and stand by. Jesse, send out the yawl and have the leadsman sound the channel. I've got a reputation to save here.
Already on his way, Captain.
Well done. Now let's see if we can free ourselves. Engineer, start both wheels and set her back. Hard. Damn it. Still stuck. Jesse, ask the leadsman how much water we've got.
Yes, sir. Lead there. How deep?
7 feet here, 12 feet right ahead.
7 feet at the bow, sir, but deeper water just beyond.
But the boat's drawing 8 feet with this load. Engineer, we're going to rock her over. Give me every ounce of pressure you've got. Come ahead. Set her back. They ate a mighty large slice of humble pie that day. Sure enough, the channel was silted up. Don't know if it was a breach in the jetty or what. Luckily, water from the rainstorm soon caused a river rise, just enough to float us over the bar. My, our passengers learned some new words that morning. I heard the St. John's been described as a strange stream with 3 different personalities. If that's the case, the Lucia Bar marks the change to her exotic side. Upon entering the middle St. John's, even the most experienced globetrotter takes notice. I think Mrs. Stowe caught this part of the trip very well.
It is the most wild, dreamlike, enchanting sail conceivable. The river sometimes narrows so that the boat brushes under overhanging branches and then widens into beautiful lakes dotted with wooded islands, palmetto hammocks, live oak groves, cypress, pine, bay, and magnolia form an interchanging picture. Vines hang festooned from tree to tree, wildflowers tempt the eye on the near banks, and one is constantly longing for the boat to delay here or there. But on she goes, her steady course, the pictured scene constantly changing as we travelers pass through the sweetest paradise God ever made.
Only problem is when you're heading upriver, it's nighttime during this part of the trip. Let's fire up the boat's searchlight. Some folks will like to stay awake on deck and catch glimpses of night critters.
What's that over there?
Usually lots of animals along this stretch, alligators being the most popular with our passengers. Of course, on the return journey, you get to see it again in daylight. And the St. John's has plenty of birds, something the travel writers always notice. There's one fellow who only identifies himself as Rambler.
At every turn in the river, and it had an endless twist and turn, the tall forms of the blue and white heron would rise from the shallow waters and fly before us. To me, the most charming feature of the trip to Enterprise was the presence of large birds I saw for the first time. Nothing could be more beautiful than the flocks, constantly rising before us.
Dadgummit, that shot better not have come from my boat. We don't allow shooting from the decks of a Debary line steamer. See if anyone aboard's armed and dangerous.
Heavens! What are you doing?
Sorry, ma'am.
There's a man in those trees.
Plume hunter on the riverbank, sir.
That's a relief. Things have gotten better lately with most steamboat lines outlawing target practice along the river. It used to be any living thing showing its face on the banks would be greeted by a volley of lead. Don't get me wrong. I've got no problem with a respectable hunter that comes here on vacation. And the good Lord knows, many people in these parts have to hunt for a living or to put food on the table. But a hunter's paradise, this is. Well, that's a reason Mr. Debary chose Florida. Debary Hall and its lands are as much a hunting estate as anything else. As his guest, you must be looking forward to bagging some quail. Now that fella right there is not hunting for sport. Did you know a plume hunter can get almost $1 a pound for the best feathers off an egret or heron? They use them in decorating fancy fans and hats. But you know, I haven't seen a snowy egret on the river in months. I've neglected to tell you a single thing about the settlements in the middle part of the St. John's. About the only place you'll find a landing is at one of the huge shell heaps. Recently, a scientist from Harvard University has been poking around in these piles. Word is that the Indians made them, the result of having snails for supper over thousands of years. In this neck of the woods, shell mounds are about the only high, dry spot to put a landing. There's Volusia, once a trading and military post that the county is named after. St. Francis, Cabbage Bluff, connected to the land by rail line. Beersford, Blue Spring. Then, of course, there's your final destination, Enterprise. Seems the river landings have seen their heyday and are destined to become ghost towns. But the towns built on the Piney Ridge probably will survive, even prosper. Small fortunes are being made with orange growing and turpentining. It's where settlers are building houses up out of the swamps, and it's where the railroads are going to run. Of course, at Debary Hall, where you're going, the whole idea is getting away from town. The place is for relaxing, mostly. Won't be long now. The dock at Enterprise is just ahead. That's Rock House up at the end. You'd likely be staying there if you weren't an invited guest at Debary Hall. Here comes the hotel's baggage cart. Mr. Debary usually has drivers waiting for his guests. There they are, about a 15-minute ride up to the house is all. You'll be well tended to from here on. It was good having you on board the City of Jacksonville. Enjoy your stay at Debary Hall. It's bound to be a special time.